Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Checkpoint Radio. My name is James and this is episode 15. I'm joined by Ben, Connor and Charlie as usual. And today we're going to be having a little chat about video game adaptations, talking about some of our favourites, what these movies do right, what they get really wrong. But before that, lads, how are we doing? Ben, how was your weekend? You good?
Yep, very nice, thank you. Been busy trying to get the house sorted because there's 5 of us crammed into a tiny little house. And so it's just been pretty busy, but can't believe we're on episode 15.
I know,
WTF.
I know. Yeah, halfway to 30, which means we're coming up to like a year for us because we do these episodes every 2 weeks, don't we?
Yeah.
So we've been doing this for like 30 weeks now. And
that's not even including our rehearsals and so on.
Yeah. Well, people don't know. People listening to this podcast probably don't know that we did weeks and weeks of just practicing because we were really sort of like not knowing what to do when it comes to a video game podcast. All we knew was that we were really passionate about games. We love to talk about games. And between us, we seem to have like really insightful conversations about games more often than not. And we thought, this would be great if we could expand this out to other people and we could bring a community into this chat. We could extend these conversations further than just be between the four of us because, I'm sure there's lots of like-minded gamers out there who appreciate games the same way that we do and look at games the same way that we do. So yeah, if that's one of you, then join our Discord, check out all of our stuff.
Yes,
there's a link in the
do.
description. Join the Checkpoint Radio gang. We'd love to hear from you. We want to hear all about all your comments and everything you've been up to, every opinion you've got about games. Bring it all in.
And we definitely needed those rehearsal weeks because our technology, our microphones were not great, were they?
It was a lot of trial and error.
It really was, and it was a pretty sorry state at one point. Like we would literally just use, like now we've all got like proper microphones and stuff, and like the setup's pretty good. And we started out using but we started out using like our headset microphones from our cheap fucking £30 headsets we've had for 10 years, and it was bad. It sounded bad. It looks terrible. But now we've got something of a production going on. We've come a long way. So thank you to everyone who's been on the journey with us so far. Really appreciate all the support we're getting. We've actually seen quite an uplift in sort of interest lately. So if you're one of the new people who have come on board and started listening to our podcast, thank you. We really appreciate all the support. And don't forget to rate the podcast as well. There's the rating system on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc. Leave us a rating. It really, really helps. And obviously we appreciate it so much.
Unless it's a bad rating. It probably wouldn't help us.
I'm sure no one would leave. I'm sure no one said anything bad about anything on the internet before. Sure. But well, that's good to hear, Ben. So you've had a busy weekend. That's cool. Connor, what about you? You've been off work, haven't you? You lucky bugger.
Yeah, I've done very little this week. I completed Starfield's main story.
Oh, nice. No, the story is what it is, and I think Bethesda games. The thing is,
I like what they were trying to say, but the execution was, I'll leave that. And then, what else I've been doing? I've tried 2 new games this week. Gunbrella come out, which was published by Devolver, which is a nice little like old school sort of side-scrolling game.
Nice.
And you have an umbrella to like traverse and shoot. And then this game. It's called Heretics Falk, which is this deck building tower defense game, which is like £7 on Steam. And I lost like 3 hours into that game immediately. The soundtrack's really good. And it's just like do one run, see how far you get, do another run, jump in, jump out. So yeah, and then just watching random documentaries on YouTube and a lot of like one championship mixed martial arts. I watched this Mongolian guy who's a minor 1 month and then fights the next month.
Oh, nice.
He won 50 grand. He elbowed this guy in a Muay Thai fight. I see the soul leave his body. It was like unbelievable.
If he's like a manual labourer, he's got
he's got that kind of like natural sort of not forced strength that you get from just a lifetime of cracking rocks.
That's it. You don't get that from the gym.
His legs, like usually you see these guys and they're all like 8-packs but their legs are this guy's legs were like, I've been carrying rocks around for like 15 years. So just a nice chilled out week.
Nice. Sometimes good to have a break in it, refresh.
Just going back quickly, is that still, can you watch all the fights free on the app?
You
used to.
A lot of them are like 4-hour streams on YouTube, and they do the little things. And then if you've got a VPN, go on to Amazon Prime, and they've got all like the latest ones on there. I think there's like maybe a 2-week delay till it gets uploaded on YouTube. I'm not too sure, but
okay, fair enough.
They do loads of. There's always a stream going on. I think they do one a week. So there's loads on YouTube, dude. And then Street Beefs is really good as well, which is like amateur mixed martial arts. Street Beefs is great.
Street Beefs.
Yeah, watch Street Beefs.
Basically, backyard brawling.
And there's another one called Top Something, which is bare knuckle boxing, but it's in like Eastern Europe.
Right.
It's mad. Yeah, I've been watching a load of that sort of stuff. So.
No, sounds like a good week to me.
Yeah, definitely well spent.
Yeah. Charlie, catch us up, man. How you been? What you been up to?
What have I been up to? Lots of working late. Trying to squeeze in a bit of Starfield. Still not completed it like everyone else.
How are you finding Starfield? Because it's not your cup of tea. Are you still going back to it?
To start with, wasn't expecting to think much of it. Then I got really into it. And now I've kind of just not really playing it that much. I think about jumping back on it, and then I load it up and go, can't be asked.
So much to do, isn't there?
You're at the house.
Yeah,
it's
a big
15
game.
hours a
It's a big
day.
game.
Yeah, I do want to complete it, but yeah, I think the last thing I did was finish that Crimson Fleet mission that I was stuck on for ages. Had to drop the difficulty.
Nice.
It's just far too hard. But yeah, got that done. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah. Other than that, not a lot.
Nice.
I think I might follow in Connor's footsteps now, though. Now that he's sort of put that in my head about all the UFC and that kind of mixed martial arts.
We changed today's topic.
Yeah. I'll do 3 hours.
12 nines. Or 12 sixes, whatever. Anyway, how are you, James? What have you been up to?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Not really been up to much. I had a week off week before last, but now I'm back at work. Just same old stuff, really. I mean, I've ploughed fucking untold hours into Starfield over this last sort of like couple of weeks since it's been out.
Yeah.
Completed the main campaign, doing a lot of side stuff, trying just to earn enough credits to build a fucking massive ship. But it's just like, I mean, our one of our mates, Fem, he is. I don't know what he's been doing on that game, but he's got like a fleet of ships that all cost like 300 grand plus.
As soon as he posted that
Massively
first ship,
cheats.
I knew that he'd been doing the exploits.
He's
For sure.
He's probably just using the console commands.
Console command for like inventory, so he will just go in and loot everything and then sell it. That's what he's been doing.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, I mean, Starfield's great. I mean, I think in a few weeks' time, maybe when we've kind of had a bit of a period to reflect on the game, because it's so big, like we'll have a proper discussion about it, I think, because I think it deserves that. It's such a huge game, and one that strangely has been the topic of much sort of discourse on Twitter, if you pay attention to any of that. So yeah, I think I've got a lot to say about it, and yeah, I think maybe in a few weeks' time we'll have a proper discussion about that game and really open up about all the story stuff, all the rest of it, where Bethesda stand, where they go from here, upcoming sort of Starfield content and things like that. So yeah, but apart from that, I've not really been doing too much. I mean, we're coming to the end of summer now. It's all shit. Fucking nights are drawing in. No more evenings down the beach swimming in the sea. It's getting dark at 7 now. Hate it. Miserable.
Are you not doing the swimming anymore?
Yeah, but
okay.
So I've been doing like these cold water swims, but like you can't really do a cold water swim in the summer because it's so hot. It's like really refreshing and nice. But I was just kind of making a point that because by the time I finish work now, you've got kind of like an hour and a half maybe until it starts getting dark, and it's just not the same. I live for these long summer evenings where it's still bright at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and you can spend all evening down the beach or swimming or just going down to town, going for a drink or whatever. But summer can't last forever. No, it doesn't. But we're coming into cozy season now. Autumn, bit of Halloween. Love that as well.
Nice.
And then you can whack that camera out.
Yeah, so I bought a new camera to try and rekindle some of like the love for photography and filmmaking that I had once. And yeah, it's been a fun experience actually, trying to like relearn everything and taking some pics. I'm really interested at the moment in sort of editing and particularly like color correction. It's like a little obsession I've got right now that I'm trying to sort of get to grips with. And yeah, so I don't know. It's good to have a little project on the side, something a bit creative that you can take your mind off the sort of mundane day-to-day. Like this podcast, I look forward to doing this podcast every other week.
Yeah,
really gets the sort of creative juices flowing, talking about all stuff that interests us, which is a great segue for the upcoming topic.
Yeah. So over the recent years, we've seen numerous video game adaptations hitting our screens. We've got the likes of the Mario movie, Detective Pikachu, and The Last of Us, all getting lots of positive attention. And we've also seen some adaptations that have missed the mark completely. But it got me thinking, what does it actually take to produce a successful video game adaptation that can be enjoyed by gamers and non-gamers alike? It's undoubtedly no easy feat to take an interactive game that's captivated thousands or maybe even millions of players through countless hours of rich gameplay and story, and then take that and create a film or TV show that's worthy of sharing the name. So there's many factors that we've got to consider, and that's exactly what we're going to be exploring in this week's episode. I think it's probably safe to say I've seen the least amount of adaptations out of all of us, so I'm keen to find out what your guys' opinions are on them. So let's jump right in. So a question to get us started. What do you think the key challenges are in adapting a video game into a different medium?
Well,
a very big question to start with.
A lot of these games now are like 30, 40, 50, 60 hour storylines. So like Last of Us, for example, they've condensed it into, was it 8 episodes overall, I think?
Yeah.
8 episodes. That game is probably 20 hours story-wise. So just finding a way, I think TV's best suited to these long narrative games.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, because it's definitely harder. You won't be able to fit a game that big into a 2-hour movie.
But then I think it depends on the game.
Yeah, because I think there was strikes going on during The Last of Us as well. So it was 8 episodes instead of HBO usually do 10. And you could sort of tell towards the end. I think the last episode we reviewed as well on the show, I can't remember how many episodes back now. Like the last couple of episodes felt quite rushed. Like when Joel goes through the hospital, it felt like a montage instead of like a real poignant moment. So I think The Last of Us to me is the most faithful recreation of a game. Just like it hit the points it needed to hit, and I think the casting was right, but it still felt a little bit rushed. And I think that was out of HBO's hands anyway.
Yeah, but it's the Last of Us is a weird one because it hit. I agree with that. It did hit a lot of the kind of key points that you expect from an adaptation of that story, because that story now for gamers especially is so kind of iconic.
Yeah,
but I think one of the most crucial elements that is seriously overlooked when a television studio or a film studio want to come in and adapt these stories is how do they convert the gameplay elements that drive the narrative into the adaptation. And I think that's something that is missed near enough all the time, because like people who try to when these games are adapted, it's usually because the story is captivating, but these studios kind of tend to forget that when you're playing the game, so much of that narrative is delivered through the gameplay and through the things you experience when you're actually playing the game, rather than sort of watching a cutscene, for example. Going back to The Last of Us, like one of the things that I didn't like about The Last of Us, and it ties into what you said about the last episode, Connor, was that it felt really rushed, and Ellie's and Joel's relationship in the HBO series felt like it was really kind of, it just felt forced. It didn't feel right for some reason. And I think a big part of that was because so much of Ellie's and Joel's relationship is forged in just the general kind of walking around in the game when
it's
you
built
are
over
talking
so
to
much
her.
time.
Exactly.
Whereas you don't get that
struggles,
with a TV show.
Exactly.
You think of there's stuff they missed out, like when they go to the college campus and Joel gets stabbed. Like that's a long period of time in the game, and I know she helps him out in the show, but there's times like in the game, especially if you play like the Left Behind DLC as well, like in between chapters within the game, like Ellie saves Joel's life multiple times. It's not just the once. She kills multiple people. She goes out and hunts for food, and like she gets into a lot of danger. And it's just a quick scene. Like she's gone, she's quickly hunting. She meets David, and then it's like, oh, Joel's back up again. It feels like it's over in an instant. Where I think for me, playing that game, obviously Ellie starts to grow on you. She's got the one-liners and stuff like that. But that moment where you are controlling Ellie, and like you said, you're in control. Like I'm having to play as Ellie. Like even earlier on, where you play as Ellie for the first time, it's like, oh, I'm in control of Ellie now. We didn't really get that in the show. It was
just that's one of the key differences, isn't it? Is that when you're playing a game, you are the character, whereas you don't tend to get that from an adaptation.
No,
you can't quite relate as much as you would playing the game.
Exactly. And for instance, playing a game like The Last of Us, the combat in that game, probably the most exciting part about most games. Obviously, when you're playing it, it feels intense and it feels difficult and it's brutal, especially in The Last of Us. And obviously, they'll capture that in the TV series, but like your experience when you play that game is unmatched. And that's the whole sort of premise of gaming. Gaming is a super interactive, immersive experience, just inherently difficult to capture that in any other medium. That's why gaming is as addictive and fun and entertaining and everything. Gaming is super interactive. Even though you are set on a certain narrative, especially with The Last of Us, but obviously I like The Last of Us series too, but it just feels that any game that has such a strong narrative, such a strong linear story, unless they stay super faithful, and I know that The Last of Us series was relatively faithful, but it's always going to be difficult to hit the nail on the head when they deviate even a little bit. For instance, if you consider the Halo series, and obviously there's a Halo game series, Halo TV series now, and the Halo TV series deviates from the main story plot quite a fair amount, but it's I don't know. I mean, with the Halo series, the game series, that's been loved and adored for decades now, hasn't it? And
20 years,
20 years.
You'll have millions and millions of players who have played all the whole library of those games. The series coming in to put a twist into it could be seen as like giving it some fresh new direction and exploring different possibilities in this universe. But I don't know, it's like when people say like, oh, have you read the book or have you seen it? Oh, it's not as good as the book. It's just that you're never going to convince everybody.
We've had it with like Netflix, especially like the remade Cowboy Bebop. That was awful, which is a beloved anime. The Witcher series, where the lead actors just walked off because the showrunners don't give a shit about like the source material. And I do think the best ones we're seeing, like Arcane, I think is the best adaptation we've seen.
Yeah.
Riot oversaw that for years, but it's nothing to do with the game.
Isn't that interesting that Arcane has been so well received, and rightfully so? I think Arcane is probably my favourite adaptation of a game I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. But isn't it interesting that obviously League of Legends is a MOBA, top-down, team-based, you know what I mean? It's a very sort of unique kind of game. It's nothing like The Last of Us. It's not a linear story. It's a multiplayer game. So the freedom that they have to create a story within that world, like the TV series, is nothing like the game. It's the complete opposite. They found a story where there is no story, if you know what I mean. Whereas with The Last of Us, they have a narrative that they have to follow and stay true to. Yeah. With Arcane, they can go do whatever they like. So it's interesting.
Well, that's a really interesting point though, because I feel like my personal preference is like I don't want to see my favorite games just straight adapted to a film or a TV show. I want to see the world explored and expanded.
Yeah.
That I will always instate, and that's what they've done with Arcane. They've kind of taken all of this backstory and lore that's there and turned it into like a visual kind of story in the form of this animated show. And I would much rather have seen that with The Last of Us. Like, I would love to have seen a prequel story. And Conor and I said this so many times about Joel and Tommy when they were smugglers together, sort of working with the Fireflies, working with a bunch of fucking dodgy other people before everything happened in the events of The Last of Us. That's a story I want to hear about.
Yeah,
I don't want to see the same story again. I've played the game like 5 times.
And then season 2 would be meeting Ellie.
Yeah.
And then we'd have the game be season 2. That'd have been so good.
Then, like, I don't know, it was in my notes, actually. I was going to bring it up. Like, I don't know, you wake up, do you know in the game it says like 10 years later when Joel wakes up, you can have him wake him up on the couch and then like Tommy's gone. You don't know where Tommy was. You could have ended it. I'm interested to see if HBO do it, because obviously they're going to be making season 2, and I don't know how they tackle the second game because it's large and there's multiple characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to have to be 2 seasons for the second game.
I think it is. I think the second game is going to be split into 2 seasons.
But HBO, if it, like the amount of Emmy nominations that first season got, HBO are going to want to do more with The Last of Us. And that's what excites me the most. You see like The Walking Dead, and obviously that show's become an absolute meme now where it's gone on for 30 seasons, there's 15 spin-offs.
Yeah.
I would like to see them do other stories in that universe. Just like, it doesn't have to be Joel and Ellie. Like, we can finish that story and...
Yeah. And I think ultimately that's probably the best way to keep everyone happy. Because the fans of the game get to explore the lore of the game, but they're not disappointed when it's either a carbon copy that they've seen before or it deviates and then they're pissed off.
Yeah.
Because fans were upset. Obviously, gamers are the most toxic human beings on the internet. They are.
Yeah.
They're very protective over the thing that they love. Even with the second game of The Last of Us, they shout on for certain reasons, which is dumb. Go and play the game. It's better than the first. They were
controversial.
It's the truth. They were sexualizing Ellie, going, "Oh, that's not my Ellie." Like, my Ellie is
because
Bella Ramsey.
The Bella Ramsey cast. She's fantastic in that series. I don't know what the fucking problem is.
And Ellie is a 13-year-old girl. And they were going, "That's not my Ellie." And I was like,
not pretty enough to be Ellie.
Like,
you're a nonce, mate. You need locking up.
Yeah, I'm like,
check his hard drive.
What are you going on about? Like,
yeah,
it's stupid. But I think the best way to do it is like we've all spoke about this for years. I look at Apex Legends. I look at Overwatch. They're the 2 games where there is lore there. There's characters there,
aren't they?
But you can do what you want with those. You've got creative license.
Yeah, I think your point, James, really sings with me, because the whole, I want to see adaptations that flesh out more of the world. Like, for instance, with what was it that used as an example? Sorry,
Arcane.
Yeah, Arcane. Sorry, I don't know how that slipped my mind. Like, it is a game that has the capability to have lots more fleshed out about it, and there's probably a ton of games out there that I'd love to see. I'm sure I'll think of one shortly, but you don't want to see a carbon copy of that game get turned into a series. Maybe you do. I think The Last of Us is a great example of a game of turning it into a series that follows and stays true to the original source material. But for instance, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see, when it comes to adaptations, a game that explores the different narratives of the world. And then if you think on the flip side, we've had obviously the who did the Walking Dead series, Telltale Games. So they did the flip side. They turn a series into a game, and they fleshed out the world in a completely different light. We were exposed to different characters and a different setting in the same universe or the same world as the Last of Us, The Walking Dead. And what an amazing idea it was. And there's so many possibilities for so many different franchises out there to do that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these film studios and these like producers that kind of option these scripts for these adaptations and things, they just look at the pure popularity of that game and try to, you know, pounce on that and act on it. And I would much rather see things like Halo. The Halo universe is so rich. Like, and there's so many different ways that stories have been told. You've got Halo graphic novels, you know, you've got short films that have been made. You've now got this, okay, admittedly, the new series is just a retelling of Master Chief's story to some extent. But yeah, the Halo's a good example of like other media that's been used to extend the life of that universe. And I don't think that, you know, film studios, I don't think they look at anything like that. I don't think they care about extending the life. I think they literally just want to pounce on and sort of capitalize on the popularity of The Last of Us. They want to capitalize on the popularity of Assassin's Creed. And it's like Uncharted as well. But you end up making just like a subpar, like, literally an imitation of something that is so superior in every single way. The Uncharted movie, fucking hell. Like, it's a terrible film. And like, we talked about, I didn't mention casting yet, but if we mention casting, so with Tom Holland being cast in that movie, it's just a prime example of the studio, like I said, trying to capitalize, use an actor who's popular, a franchise that's very popular amongst gamers in a genre that's like usually pretty sort of well received, like that kind of high octane action adventure, like Indiana Jones sort of style. And it's like, it's not bringing anything new or original to that IP. You're not retelling that story.
Casting was made thinking, oh, we can get 5 Uncharted movies out of Tom Holland. He's young enough.
Yeah.
Is he supposed to be, because I've not seen it, is he supposed to be Nathan Drake?
Nathan Drake, yeah. And then fucking Mark Wahlberg's meant to be Sully.
Wow. And if you've ever seen an image of what Sully looks like, yeah, that's not like adding up for me.
And like, it's meant to be the prequel, and obviously I have some license change some things, but like, that wasn't where Sully met Drake. Like, I refused to watch it. I was like, no.
Yeah. Especially when the games actually like flesh that out. Like, I think if you need to stay faithful to the lore of that world. For instance, you're going to have so many gamers who will know the backstory of these stories. So then you want the series to inject into there at different points, but you don't want to fuck with the lore. Because that's when stuff gets confusing. But that's what Halo did.
If you fuck with the lore, make me care about the character. Like the Hitman.
It's got to be something that complements the lore, though. I mean, like, you can't just break the canon of these worlds.
You can change things and twist things.
Yeah, but it's got to be like, within reason. You know, there's got to be a reason for it.
At least endear me to the character. Like the Hitman movies that come out, I didn't give a flying fuck about Agent 47, which is one of the most difficult characters to convey because he's emotionless. He's just a contract killer. He's made to kill.
I started watching. What's the most recent one? It is like Hitman Agent 47, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that one of the most recent ones? I started watching it the other day, and I think I made it through about 10 minutes.
Is it new or is it old school?
It's not like new, but there's 2 out.
The newest,
But I've got an alternative opinion. So I feel like what we said, I totally agree with. Either stick to the story and don't change it too much. Obviously, make changes that are suitable and obviously necessary with the limitations of filming it for real, unless you're animating it. But I feel like when you have games like, so obviously there's a BioShock series on the way. When you have a game that's got such strong like world design and it's such a strong, you know what I mean, it's iconic. You could technically fuck with the story in BioShock a little bit, as long as you absolutely 100% nail down all the world building, all of the, you know what I mean, the iconic characters, everything's fucked up, the Atlantis or whatever it's called. I haven't played BioShock for such a long time now. But if you can nail the whole theme of BioShock when you go to make that series, then give us a story that none of us have ever seen before. Don't copy a game in that instance. Give us an experience that none of us have played. That's when you have such a strong world, such as BioShock, go mad. And go wacky.
You've got these studios have got more money than sense, and like Amazon are throwing around like billions of dollars. Netflix are trying to do something to replace like Stranger Things. Like, go and get Ken Levine. Like, that's his baby. That's his world. Bring him on to oversee it. I think that's why Naughty Dog did so well. They PlayStation and Naughty Dog were like, no, this is our baby. You're not touching this unless
parents
we're involved.
Are needed.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have the actual video game developers involved.
Arcane and Riot, and I don't understand why like a studio doesn't go and get Guillermo del Toro, who's involved in games, he clearly likes the medium, go, right, you're very good at horror, Bloodborne, work with From Software. There you go.
Yeah.
And go and work.
Yeah.
And
I think it's like a necessity. If you're going to make a conversion, an adaptation, then you need to consult the and I'm sure they probably do. I'm sure there's many instances where it's not probably advertised to the world that the writers of the series and the writers of the game did.
It was the Wild West back in, like, do you remember the Doom movie that come out? And Doom, I don't think a Doom game had come out in like a decade. I think, I think it's changing now. I think Nintendo and PlayStation are getting very hands-on.
Yeah, but I feel like when a studio wants to make a film, for example, like the motivations for making a film from a film studio, like, are obviously wildly different from a developer and like their motivations for making a game. Like if you ask Ubisoft, why did you make Assassin's Creed? It's likely that they wouldn't say we wanted to tell a story about gods and goddesses who could end the world with these products. Where they wanted to tell a really cool stealth-based. They wanted to make a really cool stealth-based game where you play as an assassin. That was probably the core idea of what Assassin's Creed was. So then when you go to the studio and ask them why they want to adapt Assassin's Creed, and they say, well, it's because the story's great. It's like, well, that doesn't line up. You know, there's different motivations for why this content is successful in the first place. So then you need to understand why the developer have made the game the way they did for you to be able to make it in the way that you want to make it and adapt it. I think there's a massive kind of like disconnect between the motivations behind studios that want to adapt these games versus the developers and the publishers who create the games. And I think that's probably where a lot of the problems lie. And that's why, you know, you saying PlayStation and Sony getting Neil Druckmann to oversee and basically write the whole of the Last of Us series. So there's going to be elements of what drove him to create the game littered throughout that TV show as well, because he created that game. That's why the TV show, okay, it's got its flaws, but for the most part, it's really well executed.
Yeah.
And the same with Arcane, you know?
They worked for 6 years with that animation studio for that first season. It wasn't just like whipped up for a profit.
No.
I think it's vital. It's vital that the original creators of a game in particular is on board with making the film, because the film or the TV show is stripping away so much of what makes a game. Basically everything, bar you being told the story through cutscenes and stuff. They're stripping everything else away. So when it gets to that point, you need to have someone who knows that story inside out, knows that IP inside out, to say, okay, if you're taking literally everything away from this game, this is what you are left with, and this is what you need to focus on to make that content or that adaptation successful.
Exactly, because if you were to, for instance, to go to someone who's never heard of League of Legends, get them to watch Arcane, and then try and get them to describe what kind of game League of Legends is, they will not come up with the MOBA that it is. However, I don't know if Arcane is considered canon in the League of Legends world, but if we assume
I think
it
is.
I think it is.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons it was so well received was because it took all of this backstory and all this lore between these characters and basically made the story come to life. So it already existed in the world, and they just turned it into a series.
Yeah, and what a responsibility, because if you're exposing this game with obviously deep lore, it must have deep lore. This game's League of Legends is another game that's been around for decades, probably a decade at least. And if you are going to enlighten the lives of these characters to the world through a new medium that is going to reach so many more people than this game, even though obviously number one game, but a ton of people who've never heard of the game even. What responsibility, but especially when you have a company like Riot who are super proud, and they don't have many IPs, but the ones that they do, they really, really care
for and they look after. You look at I look at Arcane, I look at Last of Us, and I look at the Super Mario movie. I think PlayStation would have walked away if they fucked up The Last of Us. Nintendo sure as shit weren't letting anyone ruin Mario, because they'd be like, "We'll see you later. Imagine? We'll sue the balls off you. See you later."
Literally, like that is their brand.
Yeah, Like, they don't mess about. So
it's something that I was actually thinking about when I was kind of typing up some notes for this is, we talked about Arcane and we've just mentioned the Super Mario Brothers movie. I know they're just two examples, but it feels like it's generally easier to adapt a game when you're adapting it to animation rather than adapting it to live action. And I think it's because you can get closer to the fantasy elements of the game when you use animation. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's kind of like maybe something that I've subconsciously observed.
I think you're completely correct, because if you take, for instance, The Last of Us, I know we've mentioned that to death already in this episode, but how strange would it have been to have made an animation of The Last of Us when the game is so focused on like lifelike graphics?
Realism.
Yeah. So to take a game that is a sort of traditional game like a Mario and convert that into a series or a film, that is also animation, it just fits. It's just the way it's meant to be, isn't it?
Exactly.
So do you feel like there's certain games which are better suited?
Yeah.
Do you feel like games that are in that sort of more animated style rather than cinematic lifelike?
Yeah.
Do you think they'd adapt better?
You've even got like the whole Wreck-It Ralph thing, where it's almost obviously the graphics of Wreck-It Ralph are amazing, but obviously if you go to like the game that it's based on, isn't it Kong? Isn't it Donkey Kong or something like that? Or is it actually an actual game, Wreck-It Ralph?
Well, no, it's a fictional game, but there's like Donkey Kong and Zangief, like they're all in there, like Zangief, even not Zangief.
But where the graphics of that game are, the graphics of that film is so good, it almost becomes like a hybrid. But at the end of the day, it's still
it's like
an animation.
Ratchet and Clank. I think they've made a movie, and the game, like A Rift in Time, I think it's called.
Yeah,
that looks like a high-end, high-budget like animated movie. If they were to do that live action, it would be like Cats or something like that. You look at it and go like, why are you bothering doing this?
But then I've got a question. Oh no, that's going in the bin. So I've got a question then. So with quite sort of stylized games, so you got Overwatch, really unique. I love the art style of Overwatch, heavily top like 3 art styles of all time games. Love it. And then you've got a game like Apex Legends, very sort of stylized again. Yeah. Obviously, as we've said earlier, prime for a series or a film of some kind. I mean, how would they make that? Like, would that be a animation? Would that be?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be too kind of dissimilar to Arcane. It's just like you say, it's prime and it's ready. Especially like these little short films that Apex.
Both of them done.
Well, yeah, both of them. But these little short films that Respawn do in particular for Apex, like, they actually get me like really emotional. Some of them, and some of them are like really epic as well, with like the actiony sort of based ones, and like the art style as well that they use for the animation is really similar to the art style of Arcane, which was one of the big sort of praises for that series, that it was so unique and not really like anything we've sort of seen before. It is really sort of high budget, really sort of unique animation,
sort of hand drawn,
and I feel like I definitely feel like Overwatch and Apex Legends in particular are two games that would really sort of thrive on that, and as well, like same as Connor, but the same as Arcane. There's so much backstory there. There's so much lore in those worlds. Like, I mean, Overwatch, I know, for everything that is kind of going through at the moment and all the shit that it's getting, you can't really deny that the universe and the world and the story, the narrative, there's so much there to unpack that could be potentially unpacked.
And I could imagine a really emotional story of Overwatch. Can't you imagine? Like, with the whole relationships that they've got going. I think Overwatch's story could be amazing.
Like, do you remember the Bastion one?
Yeah.
Dude, that's my favourite. When he like gets flashbacks and he blitzes the whole forest down, makes a tear in my eye, mate. I love it.
If you go and see like a Pixar movie, there's a short. They always do a short before a Pixar movie, which sometimes end up. That's up to some of those levels. Not some.
Oh, it
not
really
as,
is.
Obviously, Pixar.
Like a fucking Pixar movie. They make you feel like emotions over just a rock on the floor or something. It's that kind of level of like you really feel for this character.
And then I love in Apex Legends, I think it was like the first season was out, or I mean, James and I played it from day one. So when like the first season came out, when they started to do seasons, there was this fucking amazing shot of like all these. Oh no, I can't remember. Anyway, all these like flying animals coming in, and you had the big, massive elephant, giant beast that's on
dinosaur
that.
things.
Yeah. And then with the music, oh my God, is it good? It gets me pumped. It's so good. But it's just an amazing example. I know it's a cutscene, or it's not really a cutscene. It's a fully fledged short story. They all are, but it's literally teasing us that they could make a full-on series or a full-on film, and it would be absolutely exceptional. I wouldn't get anyone else to make it. I wouldn't be going out to any studios. I would get the guys and girls who have been making those in-house short stories. They'd have to make the film or the TV series. Obviously, get some help, recruit some more people, but they'd have to be heading it off. I know this is all pipe dreams stuff, but anyway.
But I do think that you know, whereas like a game like Apex Legends is prime for an adaptation, there are some games that are just way too complicated to adapt to make it any sort of reasonable movie. Good example of this. Has anyone seen the Need for Speed film?
Yes.
What a hot pile of garbage that movie is. And it's like, how the hell do you adapt a Need for Speed game into a movie? Like, there is no story to that game whatsoever.
Yeah, you basically
just what were they thinking?
Vin Diesel's been doing it for 15 years, making pointless movies.
But I mean, it's a good point. Sorry, Charlie, you can go.
Go on, Charles.
No, I was just going to say, there's definitely games that don't work.
I mean, can you imagine trying to turn? I mean, like what you said towards the very beginning of those podcasts, Connor, where you was like, most games are maybe 20 to 30 hours, maybe longer. How are you supposed to condense that down into either an hour and a half, 2 hour film or I don't know, 10 hour series?
It's like there's been talks for years of a Metal Gear Solid movie, and it's like, I have to watch video essays on YouTube to understand what's going on within those like 5 or 6 games. Like, how are you going to convey that to an audience that knows nothing about Metal Gear Solid?
Yeah. I mean,
it's impossible. It's like, oh yeah, we get Oscar Isaac and like we get this guy and he's played the games. It's like, yeah, that's great, but you're going to need 4 seasons for the first game, like just to get over some of the lore.
Yeah. I mean, do you think there are a few games that I think would make an amazing like adaptations? Like, I can imagine a Dead Space series or a film being amazing.
That's easy though, isn't it? Because it's so contained and
apparently there's one in the works. A Dead Space movie.
Yeah,
I think the horror games are so easy to make, especially if you get someone like Guillermo del Toro involved, or someone who likes video games, who's worked in video games.
Yeah.
But then it makes you, sorry, I was going to move on and say, then it makes you think about the franchises that have always kind of done that whole, what did we learn at uni, that multimedia thing where, so for instance, you think of the Star Wars, transmedia. When you think of Star Wars, for instance, for as long as Star Wars has been around, there's been games. So for the entirety of that, Star Wars' existence, games have always been like, games aren't considered, Star Wars games aren't considered adaptations, really. They are like
you look at
part of the
Halo.
experience.
You look at Halo. I think some of those games are considered canon now for Star Wars. For Star Wars, I was thinking.
Yeah,
but you look at Halo.
I know one is.
You've got
it's a bit of a mix with Star Wars.
That like whole franchise is a mix. Like the films, some people would say that's not canon to me, like especially the newest ones. But like, I think is it Lawrence Kasdan? I'm butchering the guy's name, but he wrote a load of books in like the 80s and 90s, and he was involved in like the original trilogy, and like people love those books. And then obviously after, then George Lucas goes, I'm going to go make these prequels, and then I'm going to make some more money, and then they got rid of them completely from canon. So it happens all the time.
Well, we've sort of covered a few of the ones that are doing it well. Any that stand out as horrific? I know, James, you've just mentioned Need for Speed.
Pointless.
Any other adaptations that just you think really missed the mark?
Hitman. The
I
original
heard
Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, Hitman was pretty bad.
Wasn't that great?
Prince of Persia. Even though I enjoyed that movie, again, I was like, why is this being made into a film? You know, there's a lot of times where I watch these adaptations and I kind of just think to myself, why does this exist? Like, there's no reason for this to be a thing. And I think that's like pretty bad, to be honest.
I think that comes from, you know, the point you made about a studio looking to make a quick buck. For instance, when it comes to the Uncharted, it was prime to make a load of money, good category, great, well, you know what I mean, cast that are popular. I think with Prince of Persia, I read a bit earlier that it was like after all the Pirates of the Caribbean, and Hollywood was literally looking for its next Pirates of the Caribbean sort of flick thing. So
the old Street Fighter movies, I think there's multiple ones. Terrible.
I don't think I've seen any Street Fighter films.
I think Jean-Claude Van Damme's in one of them. It might have been like the 90s. Terrible.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, the new Mortal Kombat movie was pretty good.
It was good. I enjoyed that.
What do you think about the hesitant to say original Tomb Raiders, but like the Tomb Raider films with
awful.
The Angelina Jolie films.
Angelina Jolie, that's it.
Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? They're nothing to write about.
Yeah. To be honest, I feel like
the most recent one though.
Yeah. I feel like if you were to make a Tomb Raider game today, I know that other one's maybe not even that old, but Tomb Raider, I feel like, is one of those games that you could be quite free with that story. You don't have to follow the narrative of any particular game. The world and the character are so well established that as long as you stay true to the cause of the character in the world and their mission, then you could have quite a fun time with making
the new Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander in them. That film is a direct adaptation of the reboot of games.
Yeah.
But I think if I remember rightly, I think in the game, she realizes that her father was also stranded on the same island that she like so kind of shipwrecked on, but he's now dead. But in the film, he's alive. So that is like one massive piece of canon that you have just fucking smashed into pieces for the sake of what, you know? And as like just a quick word of those Tomb Raider games, like the reboot, I think it's a fantastic reboot. I think the story's really good. And again, it comes down to the fact that like, for some reason, the people making these adaptations have just taken the fucking liberty with the story. For God, why? Like, why have you done that? Like, literally, why have you done that?
Like, they probably, I can just imagine them now in that fucking writing room, and they'll be like, oh, but it really speaks to me, and I feel like if her dad was alive, it would be, you know what I mean? It's like, no, it's not
how
about
emotional would their reunion be? That's not the story, though, so why are you doing it?
I feel like there needs to be more consultation with like
actual
fans.
gamers.
But what was it?
Because you saw that with Sonic, didn't you? When they released the trailer and Sonic was all kinds of fucked up.
Sonic was looking
and everyone was like
messed up.
Nope. And they changed it.
Sorry, the guy who created Twisted Metal, David Jaffe, like Twisted Metal's just come out to us on, I think it's Peacock in America. It's getting like decent reviews, 6s and 7s, and it's getting people are quite liking it.
Yeah,
I don't even think they called him. Though I think he said like they were going to bring him out to a premiere, but they didn't even like get his. I was like, that dude created that, and you've just like completely ignored
it. Mugged him off, pretending like it doesn't exist. None of you would have a job if it wasn't for him making this fucking piece of content that you ripped off from him. Pricks.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave that negative conversation. But to round out the episode, how about we list some adaptations that we know are on the horizon and that we're looking forward to? I've got, I think, 4 that I found on IGN's website that I'm quite keen for.
Hit us with them.
So I've seen Gears of War, which I think is going to be a film. And I could see that being multiple films.
Is Batista playing Marcus Phoenix? Because if he's not...
He wants it.
If he's not...
But I don't know. It's not confirmed.
Is it Rod Ferguson? Is he the guy who was the lead on Gears of War, like 1, 2, and 3 or something? Someone who worked on those games said that they're all for Batista playing. You can fucking play as Batista in the 5th one. Like, you literally swap out Marcus's... Or no, you don't play as him, but you swap out... But Marcus's character model with Batista, and he's just there.
He's a brick shit house.
Can you, like, is that a mod or is that
DLC?
actually?
No, it's like an actual thing in the game.
Oh,
He's a brick shit house. He loves the games.
He's a massive fan of the game, apparently. So.
And he's a phenomenal
actor. He's a good actor. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, you know. And he's already got I think it's Netflix, isn't it, that are doing the Gears of War film. So he's already worked with them before. He's already got a contract with them. So it would be pretty easy just to get him in to do that.
Yeah, I recently went back and completed Gears of War 1 and just amazing. Good. Just so good. Amazing. I was one of my first ever Xbox, proper at the time next gen consoles. First game, I fucking loved it for life.
Two is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I need to
shame there's not a PC version of 2.
Yeah, is there not?
Stream
that
it.
Sucks.
You have to stream it. They've never brought it to PC, unfortunately. Same as what Halo 2 was like until they did the Halo Ultimate Collection.
What else you got, Charlie?
BioShock, which has already been mentioned.
Yeah, I'm strangely kind of anticipating. I'm interested to see what they do with that because, as we mentioned earlier, it's such a unique world, and they need a really kind of, I think, unique mind working on that. They need someone who really gets what that game is.
It's the world that I'm actually looking forward to because I've never played the games myself.
Highly recommend.
I've
definitely recommend.
Seen them played. And
you don't even have to play the second one. You can do 1 and 3.
Yeah.
1 and Infinite.
I saw there's the Division, which I think could be interesting, depending on where
I
that
think
goes.
It's one of those unknowns at the moment where it was announced. Because you remember Ubisoft went through a little phase of just announcing they were going to be making loads of film versions of their content. So there's a Splinter Cell film that's been announced. Tom Hardy's been attached to it for seems like forever, but it doesn't really look like it's going anywhere. Obviously, we had the Assassin's Creed movie,
which probably stopped them from continuing.
Exactly. And then Splinter Cell was one of them, and then the Division as well. Jake Gyllenhaal was attached to that at one point.
I'll watch it if it's in it.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that's one of the ones on the list where it says status unknown. So might see it, might not. And the last one, which I did not expect to see, Firewatch.
Oh yeah, I see this a while ago. Yeah.
I don't know
I've
quite
actually
how
not played
be...
Firewatch.
Yeah,
I'll
play it.
I got freaked out. Well, I did play it, but I got this really
you can play
eerie...
Dead Space, but you can't play Firewatch.
Yeah, I just got this eerie feeling.
It's too real.
I just like,
well, that's
I haven't
the thing,
played Edith Finch yet, because I was like, I feel like someone's behind me. So
this is, I think, Firewatch, like what we said about Apex Legends and Overwatch. Firewatch as well is a game that's primed, I think, for a potentially a great adaptation because the story is just so good and the characters are really interesting, and I just love the concept of it.
A 4 to 6 episode limited run series. I think that would be great.
Doesn't have to be big budget.
Yeah, it's not got to be 5 seasons long. It's not got to be
it's what
a trilogy or anything. Just make a limited series.
It's what I hated with The Walking Dead, because I did start watching The Walking Dead and I got to 4 seasons and it was and then it's 22 episodes a season. I'm done. The first season of The Walking Dead, 6 episodes, and it tells this one narrative and it's short, it's concise, and it's to the point.
Yeah.
If they do it like that, I'm not comparing the two IPs, but short and sweet, and you tell that story perfectly. Good casting, that would be great.
I've got a few more that are apparently either in production or soon will be.
Okay.
I'll rattle through them and then we can maybe highlight a couple.
Yeah.
So we've got God of War, which I think would be insane. Fallout, we might have mentioned that already. Borderlands, I've got some news on that. Horizon Zero Dawn. One that I'm definitely interested in and was going to mention that I'd like to see, Death Stranding. I think that could be good.
Stay away. Unless Kojima is involved, stay the fuck away.
Yeah, okay, good point. Ghosts of Tsushima, I can't pronounce that. Or Ghost of Tsushima. Another Tomb Raider.
Yes, Amazon. On Amazon.
Twisted Metal, I've never played that or seen it. Five Nights at Freddy's, we all know that one's on the way.
Coming out,
yeah. And the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but I think that's already come out. Wait, Five Nights at Freddy's, is that out now?
Out at the end of the year, I think.
Coming out soon.
Sorry.
I they just released the first trailer, I think, for it a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Borderlands, the little bit of news. So apparently that has been in production since 2021. And
I've seen photos from like set pictures and stuff from that movie.
But apparently they've been told to do a lot of reshoots, and it's an absolute mess.
They've changed directors as well. I did a post about it a while ago on the Instagram, which you can go check out at Checkpoint Radio.
I watched a video of this guy who covered it, and he was like, just the difficulty alone of getting all the crew, all the cast, everyone back to do a massive amount of reshoots, make it all fit, and all the
I think Eli Roth was involved.
Continuity.
With
that. Yeah, wasn't he directing it at one point?
Yeah, I think that's changed.
Yeah. I personally love the Borderlands series, so I'd like to see it, but similar to what you said about Death Stranding, unless you can do it faithfully and really well, just don't touch it. It's like gold. You don't touch Borderlands unless you can do it justice.
Yeah.
What
do you think about the casting for Borderlands? Just quickly.
I don't know who's casting.
You've got
Charlize Theron's casting, isn't she?
You got Kevin Hart. You got Jack Black as Claptrap, I think. I can't remember who else.
I can see Jack Black doing a good job with Claptrap because you need someone who's quite.
Why not just go and get someone like Nolan North or the guy that actually voices Claptrap?
Such a good point. Just get the dude who did it. That character is iconic because of the voice actor who did it. So get the dude who done it.
What I don't understand is like they can go if they're doing animations and stuff like that, because Claptrap's a fucking robot. Go and get the guy who does it. Pay him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd take.
They want to distance themselves enough.
Like that Uncharted movie. As much as I just sit through it and just like get through it, the highlight was seeing Nolan North. I was like, that's the guy.
It's like.
So James, when I said God of War, you winced slightly. I'm intrigued.
How'd you know?
Because how do you do God? And I actually think that God of War might have the same problem that The Last of Us had, where a lot of the story is told through, and a lot of Kratos and Atreus' relationship. Yeah. So I think it's going to be an adaptation of the current sort of series on PS5, not the kind of original way back on the PS3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So this Nordic series, I think that's what they're going to be adapting. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so Kratos and Atreus, like much of their relationship is kind of fleshed out as you're kind of walking and talking.
Yeah, it's forged on the road.
Exactly, the same way Joel and Ellie's was forged on the road. And I think that someone needs to get in there and see what happened with The Last of Us and how anticlimactic the end was, because they missed all of that from the series. Because the other thing I've got about, like, the other thing that makes me skeptical about God of War is it's gonna need a big budget. And I know Amazon have got like stupid money and they spent $1 billion on the fucking Rings of Power, but I think God of War, because of how big the set pieces are in the game, and you've literally got gods fighting gods and they're throwing each other through mountains, you know, like Man of Steel, the fight between Superman and General Zod at the end is just fucking absolute carnage. Like, they're going to need that level of production to make it believable and make it sort of a spectacle.
Going through the Bifrost, the animation department, the visual effects department, and they're like, oh my fuck, like, but then that's a month's work.
Yeah. But then they're also going to need to absolutely nail the combat. One of the most satisfying combat games of all time. Fucking just launching that axe,
and catching it and feeling that.
Yeah.
How are they going to capture that?
So what do we think of? I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays Kratos.
Yeah.
What do we think of him playing Kratos in the series? Because I am all for that.
Because
he's a great actor.
There's going to be,
who else
and he's
would you
fucking
get?
huge as well.
It's going to be tons of makeup anyway.
Yeah.
Like, get him to do it. He's built like a brick shit house. Yeah. He knows that character inside out.
He's got the voice.
Yeah. He can almost kind of like help steer it as they're shooting it as well. Yeah. Like down to the nuances with like the conversation and the actual acting on set. Like he's done it all already. He can be there to help sort of like guide it on the right path.
And obviously, like they don't have to pay someone like Batista $20 million for the, like, he can play that character again, and he can get seriously paid from Amazon, because these films don't exist without him. Or this show doesn't, because obviously the original God of War is loved, and rightfully so. I think they're fun games. But what Santa Monica have done with this, and it's telling this story, if there's anyone else voicing him, obviously it probably would work, but there's a real gravitas that he brings to that role, that voice. Like, he's an old Kratos, he's slower. I don't want to see Kratos. Obviously, he does some mad shit in the games, but I don't want to see a young Kratos. I want to see the older guy.
A weathered, slow, powerful, but
just
patient.
Sick to death of people.
I mean, they could even like. I mean, I don't know how they could do it, but they could tell his story and his Greek origins and his kind of fights with those gods as they're telling his current story. They could have even a whole flashback episode.
Yeah.
You know, they could do
so
that.
So is it a
still.
series? Sorry, or is this going to be a film?
Series. It's a series,
okay.
and I think they're adapting the Nordic story that's been told in the reboot.
See.
Yeah, but sticking with Amazon though, one series that I am actually quite excited for is the Fallout series, which is also being produced by Amazon. Jonathan Nolan of the Nolan family, filmmaker fame, Chris Nolan's brother, is the showrunner on it. And I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but I saw a leaked clip of the series, which was shown in a behind closed doors, I think maybe some sort of press event or something. It looks good. So
does it?
Yeah, I'm quite excited for what they do with Fallout.
Yeah, I feel like Fallout is also one of those games that fits that category of very strong world building, such a sort of solid ground to build on, and obviously you've got the endless vaults. You can literally pick a story and go mad.
You can go anywhere with it.
Yeah, you can be in vaults 29 and
what's
and
great
make your own
about
story.
Fallout is you can set it pretty much. There's some places in the US you can't set it because of obviously like the Fallout zones and stuff like that. But the lore behind like Fallout is ridiculous. Like in like the 1 and 2, like the way they've fleshed out those worlds, and obviously Bethesda have taken it and done even more with it. You can tell a million stories in that universe, and it makes sense.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, I have got high hopes for that.
Yeah. So you know the I don't know if anyone knows this. I don't even actually know if this is true, but I read that the Pit Boy with got his little thumb up, little blue Pit Boy. He's got his thumb up because he's measuring the size of the mushroom cloud. Because apparently, if the mushroom cloud is bigger than your thumb, you're in a danger zone. If it's smaller than your thumb, you're safe. Supposedly.
That's cool.
Damn.
Connor?
Phoebe Waller-Bridges is doing the Tomb Raider series on Amazon.
There's a few, isn't there? Because I know there's
films and TV.
There's an anime.
Yeah, I think Amazon have bought the rights to Tomb Raider now, so films, games, a lot.
Okay.
So I'm interested in that. Apparently, there's a Bloodborne movie or show in development. I'd love to see that as like a Netflix animation. Like I don't know if anyone's watched Castlevania on Netflix.
No, I've not seen it.
4 seasons and it's really fucking good.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that as an anime.
Death Stranding, I just found out Kojima is involved.
How involved?
With Kojima involved himself, the game will introduce new elements.
Producing,
starring.
Yeah, acting. Yeah.
Doing the music. Doing the titles.
Do the music.
Yeah.
Write the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
Kojima Productions are set to produce it. Kojima himself is involved.
I don't know if he'd let anyone do it if he was going to have some sort of
unless it's
involvement.
A Kojima Del Toro production. I don't.
Yeah.
I could actually probably imagine Del Toro directing that.
Oh mate, yeah.
And Kojima's loyal, isn't he? Like if when he finds his team, he sticks with them. It's unsure if Norman Reedus or any of the other stars are.
Only thing I want,
it's got to be.
Only thing I want is David Hayter got shafted in Metal Gear Solid 5, so he needs to be involved somehow. Like Guy Voice Snake. I don't care if it's a little character. He writes films. He wrote one of the X-Men movies. Get David Hayter involved.
Yeah. Okay.
Please.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it could be. I think it's such a good. I love Death Stranding. Definitely a game that surprised me. I never thought I'd love Death Stranding.
You don't do the story because it's easy to do. Like Troy Baker acts, Norman Reedus. Obviously, you could get him involved. But I'd like to see because Kojima's weird, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did a series which is nothing to do with the game, just to flesh out the world. Like
I
one
mean, that could be an idea. Just do something like we said earlier about fleshing out the universe rather than straight adapting the story. Because with Death Stranding, like there's so many kind of high profile proper actors in Death Stranding that like if you were to bring them back for a movie adaptation, for example, I don't really see the point in that, because what is it adding to it? You know, apart from like maybe wanting to cash in and extend Death Stranding to a new audience who maybe wouldn't be as involved or appreciative of the game. But then again, the only reason I played Death Stranding is because it's a Kojima game. Like if someone else had made that, I probably wouldn't have touched it. It's just because I'm so interested in what he does that I played it. I went into it with low expectations and was really quite blown away by the end of it.
Yeah,
but it's, where's the appeal if it's just
I'd love to see how the world got to where it was.
Yeah. Give us some explanation. And it's also similar to like The Last of Us, similar to Fallout, where obviously this is a global event. The Last of Us is a global event. The Fallout series game is a global event. Pick and choose anywhere. I don't know, but
Well, this has been insightful. I'll just leave you with a thought. I wonder if we'll see a Starfield adaptation one of these days.
It won't be finished.
Not for a long time. That'll be another decade, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we've got some pretty good video game adaptations to look forward to. Thank you for that topic, Charlie. It's really interesting. Enjoyed talking about that, actually. There's
Me too.
Lots to come on the horizon, and it's actually quite fun to look back and reflect on some of the absolute shit we've had to put up with in the past, but also celebrate the stuff that has been good. But as these adaptations come on, you know, we'll be talking about them on this show. This is a video game centric podcast, and I think video game adaptations rightfully fall into that too. Thank you all for tuning in. Remember, if you click the link in the description of this episode, you can see all of our other content, including our Discord server, which we'd love you all to join and be a part of it. It's a great place to talk, hang out with other gamers, keep the discussion going. So we hope to see you there. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.